It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com and also to our brand new sponsor, MichiganMushrooms.net. You go to MichiganMushrooms.net, you can check out their chaga mushrooms. Makes a great Christmas gift, by the way. They got these little sample packets that you can send people their sample of their mushrooms. And check them out on Facebook at Michigan Mushrooms LLC. If this is the first time you're hearing this show, please check out OppermanReport.com. We do a whole another show during the week. We have a members section with additional content, exclusive interviews that we've done. Coming up tomorrow, I'm going to be interviewing O.J. Simpson's prison guard, one of the correction officers that was had O.J. Simpson in custody, and he's coming out with a book about his experience up there at the Northern Nevada prison system, and about how his experience with O.J. Simpson. So we have that coming on tomorrow. Tonight, we're really lucky to have a superstar in the field of FBI whistleblowers and also a forensic scientist, Dr. Fred Whitehurst, who was an FBI whistleblower. He's involved in everything between from Oklahoma City bombing, the O.J. Simpson case, Waco, TWA 800, and many other cases. He's also a doctor and also a practicing attorney right now in North Carolina, I believe. Dr. Whitehurst, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you so much for coming on. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What's Fred Whitehurst today? How would you describe yourself? Married, grandpa, lawyer?
Well, I'm just a country lawyer. Got no grandchildren. That would be more stress than I could handle. I practice law in, a small place in eastern North Carolina. I'm also a forensic consultant. People hire me from all over the country to look at forensic laboratory work product and give them some idea about whether there are any issues with it.
Ah, very good. Okay, so you're an expert witness, travel around the country. But what kind of law do you practice over there in North Carolina?
Well, I do criminal defense.
Okay. Almost exclusively criminal defense?
Yes, for a while I did family law, but the defense part really kind of crowded it out. So I essentially do criminal defense work.
From the little bit I've talked to you, family law can be very draining emotionally. And it would appear to me that you took that to heart, and it was a little more than you could take. And
well, you'll have to clue me in on where you're going with that there.
Well,
Okay.
I'm just saying that family law can be very emotionally draining, and you seem like the kind of guy that takes things to heart, and you know what I mean, and really threw yourself into that, and it might have been a little bit more than you want to do.
Well, there was a point at which what I did was law concerning children who were, the departments of social services get involved in cases, and there got to be a point where that with criminal defense and then, children in foster care and that kind of thing, it was only so much of me, so I got myself out of that.
Yeah, I hear you. So now, how'd you get into the FBI?
Well, I was down in Texas A&M. I applied for a number of federal agencies, and when I went up to look at the FBI and I saw their laboratory, I fell in love with it. And I wanted to be just a scientist. I wanted to be a scientist in the laboratory. I wasn't interested in being an agent, but the recruiter looked at my background. I'd been a Vietnam War veteran and apparently had done the things that he thought were things they wanted in the agent ranks, and so I applied for and was accepted. It took 18 months for me to get into the Bureau. Went through the academy and became an agent, and went to the field for 4 years.
And then you went to work in the FBI crime lab?
Yes, I started out in Houston, went up to Northern California and then to Southern California, and after that they decided that I got in enough trouble when I was out in the field, and they wanted to put me where I could be better supervised. So they put me in the laboratory in 1986. In June of 86 is when I joined the lab.
Hey, let me ask you a question on the side. Did you ever run into Ted Gunderson while you were working at the FBI?
You know, I talked to Ted quite often after I got out when the issues began to be revealed at the laboratory. Ted contacted me a few times.
Okay. But you never worked with him together in the same office or anything?
No. He was way up the ladder from me. Okay. You know, he was one of the superstars. I was just a lab rat working on terrorism cases, bombing cases, things like that.
So, well, then give us an idea. While you were active duty FBI, what kind of cases were you working on?
When I was in the FBI?
Yeah, active duty FBI, what kind of cases were you working on?
Well, when I was in the field, I did what's called reactive crime. You know, let's see, kidnappings, bank robberies, extortions, things like that. And then I quickly moved over into narcotics investigations, and I worked on biker gangs, Middle Eastern heroin traffickers, Colombian cocaine traffickers. We didn't do a lot of marijuana investigation unless it was huge, and I did some of those. But I found the drug narcotics investigation very, it was just very satisfying. It was back when we thought we could win the war on drugs, and I enjoyed that kind of work. When I went to the crime lab, they put me into an area of analyzing materials from bombing crime scenes. And, you think of that as the explosives, but everything you can imagine when something blows up, there's all kinds of materials that come out of a bombing crime scene. So I did analytical chemistry of those things for a number of years.
And were there enough bombing crime scenes to keep you busy?
Oh, well, yes, 7 days a week. It was beautiful. It was, that laboratory for me was heaven. I could have all the equipment I wanted. I could have all the assets I needed to do whatever I needed. I could travel wherever I needed. I could have all the education. I could put on conferences. I could walk into the boss's office and we'd say, we needed this gizmo or that gizmo, and he'd say, well, buy it. And it was literally, my wife worked with me at the FBI. She wasn't an agent, but she worked in the support staff, and we were in the building. If we could stay 7 days a week or 8 days a week, we'd have stayed there.
And there was no concern about budget.
Go ahead.
No concern about budget or funding. Yeah, you had no concern. Unlimited bank account.
Pretty much so. When I first got to the lab, a lot of the equipment was old and worn out, and nobody got in my way replacing it. A lot of equipment I initially was able to bring into the lab came from Department of Defense or National Institute of Health or National Cancer research folks, that kind of thing. But then gradually, the FBI just, if you saw it, you wanted it, they gave it to us.
That's interesting. It brings up a question because I had Richard Lambert on the show,
mm-hmm.
and he ran the anthrax investigation. And he didn't seem to have that experience at all.
Well,
what do you mean
he wasn't in the scientific analysis section, and I understood that one of the problems in those areas was really didn't have expertise on board. And there for a while, if the FBI said, well, we're the experts, and everybody stepped back. Now it's a different world, and the FBI management, I hope and I think, realized that you can't employ all areas of scientific expertise. You've got to contract it out. But whatever Mr. Lambert dealt with, I didn't deal with that at all. I had I walked in one time and I needed a $500,000 triple quadrupole mass spectrometer, and I explained it to Mr. Greenleaf, and he said, "Why are you talking to me about this? Why didn't you get it 2 weeks ago?" And it was $500,000. And okay, well, that wasn't a normal thing, but spending $250,000 or $25,000 or $50,000 on equipment, it needed to be justified. It wasn't, we couldn't just irresponsibly throw the money around, but I saw no barriers at all.
So you
the only barriers I really ran into was when people wanted me to say things that I didn't believe and the data didn't support.
So you couldn't order 2 of those things and take one home, right?
You what?
You couldn't order 2 of those things and take one home.
Well, I could order 10 of them, and they all needed to be in the lab. There was no reason to take anything home because, frankly, home was right there in the laboratory.
Yeah, you're there all the time.
It was extraordinary. It was just beautiful. We could think as far as we wanted to, but what we said, that was a different matter.
Right. But while we're talking about Richard Lambert, what do you make of that whole story and about his lawsuit and stuff like that? It sounds like the anthrax investigation was kind of stifled from the top.
A lot of scientific inquiry. We could have all the toys we wanted, and we could think all the lofty thoughts we wanted, but we couldn't write the reports that we wanted. We couldn't say what we believed to be true. I could be wrong. I've been wrong a lot in my life. But I need to be able as a scientist to say, look, this is what I think, and let's talk about it. And when somebody comes and says, the guys upstairs don't want this paragraph in your report, and you say, well, that's what I believe. That's what, you've made me the expert. Well, and I think that's what they ran into with quite a number of areas of expertise when the FBI management, who were abysmally scientifically ignorant, phenomenally scientifically ignorant, wanted you to say something, they were not interested in an alternative explanation. So they interjected their political agendas and career agendas right in your face. And that culture extended into the laboratory where people were brought in who had no scientific background at all. None whatsoever. A guy with a Bachelor of Arts degree in English literature, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't allow him to make comments about the mass spectra from a particular energetic material and understand what he's talking about. I mean, that sort of we'll keep them, I think, you want to say keep them honest, but in the case of the FBI management all the way up to the director's office when Louis Freeh was there, it was they're going to say what we want them to say, and they're going to attach their degrees and their expertise to what we want them to say. And they were so often wrong. And, sometimes you can't tell the truth in Washington, D.C. and keep your job. I say that tongue-in-cheek.
Well, so it seems like you're saying that the upper brass, they had an agenda and they wanted you to create your reports to fit their case. Well,
that's why that's why you know my name.
Yeah, right.
Because, I'm not going to lie in a court of law. I'm not going to lie on a report. I'm sorry. I'm just not going to. It's not productive. It really creates the ignorance of those people, and they're dictating ignorance on the reports or whatever. It keeps us vulnerable as a nation. This is what your scientists say. It was like the mess of the what do you call those? The weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Right.
And I was hearing from military folks that from space they were detecting weapons of mass destruction in vehicles. Well, that's silliness. Those were chemicals. You don't detect them. It's not going to happen. That's silliness. And okay, but we need to know that. Or this kind of bomb was we've seen this. We've seen Iraqi agents with this before. No, you haven't ever. But altering reports, changing evidence, testifying outside areas of expertise because FBI management was blind. They were blind to technical issues, and they didn't want to hear. As one of my bosses said to me, I don't want to hear that techno babble from you, that legalese from you. Well, we were forensic scientists, science to be used in the law, legalese. But he was poorly equipped to understand any of the issues I was raising and was a duck out of water.
Well, do you think it was just ignorance, or was it cynical that they didn't care, and they wanted to make their case and they didn't care what the facts were?
There can be all sorts of agendas, but let's take a very simple one. We have a crime. The President of the United States says we will leave no stone unturned, unmoved, okay? And when we catch those people, okay, that goes down to the Attorney General, it goes to the Director of the FBI, and they all parrot what they've heard. And they all have got to get their guy. And so they get their guy. And, when it has to do with a bomb coming out of the air, let's just get somebody of Arabic origin. Let's just get one. And I wrote a memo one time, and I said, sure, we're going to find an Arab fellow, and we're going to accuse him of this, whether he did it or not. And at the end of those allegations, we're going to take his life from him. We're going to put him in a Guantanamo Bay or something like that, okay? But the next airplane that comes out of the air, because that was not an air bombing, that was a mechanical failure, we're going to have to learn by killing 2 airplanes full of people instead of 1. But all the people that agreed to go along with the guy up top, all of them, well, they're going to get promoted. They're going to get, they'll get that fat retirement check, and they'll run for some office, or they'll be a director of some whatever, but they'll kill people that way. They will not secure the safety of this nation that way. They will refuse to answer, and so you end up with the messes we saw with the anthrax and the messes we saw with terrorism. And I know I've been present for screaming pitch battles between managers and 1 or 2 or 3 scientists that said this scientific data doesn't back this up. And so, as a kid told me one time, I have a doctorate in chemistry. He had an undergraduate degree in some area of social science. He said, we'll replace you with a bright high school kid who will go along with the rest of the team if we have to. Okay, well, they replaced me.
Well, you beat me to my question, because I was going to say, you were writing memos like that, and was anybody else around you being that objecting like you were, or was it just you? There were 30 people who came forward when the Inspector General, came forward and voiced their positions when the Inspector General started looking at it. There were 30 people, if not more. There were some mid-level managers that testified for the U.S. Senate, U.S. Congress, just said what they believed. Dr. Drew Richardson said, the use of controlled question testing polygraph at the FBI is like reading tea leaves. And I'm sitting there in the Senate hearing room, and I'm saying, wait a minute, this is my hearing for my whistleblowing USOB. And there, and I hope he's listening too, because I've told him this before. But I said, okay, well, go ahead, because he got his Ph.D. in psychophysiology. I'm not sure what that is, but the FBI paid for it. And then he said, the polygraph doesn't work the way we're practicing it. It's like reading tea leaves. No, people knew, people agreed, and when they had a chance, when they were forced to testify under oath before the Inspector General, Mike Bromwitz's group, they said, now there's one of them who's a dear friend of mine that said, I agree with the message, but not the messenger. There had to have been another way to fix this. Well, there wasn't. There just wasn't. And so somebody had to take a bullet in the head, and I just said, well, I'll take a bullet in the head. And what was the straw that broke the camel's back for you? Now, did you become a whistleblower while active duty FBI or after you retired?
The thing that was disappointing to me in the FBI, I had held the FBI in highest regard. And I was in the FBI about 20 minutes. And I hadn't even gone to Quantico yet. And we walked into a room, and this will sound very naive to you, but we walked into this room, and we all got together, and all of those in class 82-1 or 82-3, whatever we were. And they wanted us to sign in as if we got there at 6:30 in the morning. And it was 9 o'clock. And I thought, you know what? This is sort of like stealing. It's like lying. Well, that's kind of naive. You know, everybody in government lies anyhow, and we all know it. But gradually in the field, I saw this is not what I thought. You know, this is still my family. And for about 4 years in the field, I said, okay, well, you know what? There are bigger things. There's bigger fish to fry. These minor criminal acts of stealing from your travel voucher and signing in that you got here at 6 in the morning when it's 8:30 when you get in front of the register, that sort of thing. Okay. I guess we got bigger fish to fry. But when I got to the crime lab, I said, well, you know, I don't care about how many fish you're going to fry. You know, I'm not tolerating this anymore. I have direct orders from executive order that said we had to report fraud, waste, abuse, and corruption to the appropriate authority. And then the FBI ordered us, their little documents, or, you know, their orders say, report any indication of misconduct. And so I started doing it. That was in the fall of 1986. There are issues, I don't understand them. Maybe I'm wrong about what I'm looking at. My colleagues around me who were good, moral guys agreed, yep, but there's nothing we can do about this. But we can't do anything to fix this. And it seemed kind of bad to me. Kind of, you know, and again, it's naive, but, you know, you go on you get on an airplane, you go someplace on a mission, and you come back and you turn in a voucher for what you spent, and somebody says, no, you got to take the maximum money. So I braced at that I didn't spend that money. That's stealing. So the way the FBI solved that was for every one of my vouchers I had to write on them, reimbursement is requested only for expenditures incurred. Every one of my vouchers I had to request permission not to lie. Well, you know, that's fraud against the government, but you know, it only comes to millions and millions and millions of dollars of American taxpayers' money every year. But that doesn't matter to the FBI or the investigators. Nobody investigates them. But when I saw things wrong in the lab itself and saw this is directly affecting people's lives. FBI agents pocketing money they shouldn't be pocketing is one thing. But when we're coming up with results that are not supported by the data, that we don't understand the uncertainty of what we've got. I talked it to the guys in my unit, and most of them were straight shooters. But they'd already talked it to other people, and they just saw that nothing was going to happen. Well, there was a solution to that, and the solution was report fraud, waste, abuse, and corruption to the appropriate authority. And nobody at that time defined appropriate authority. So I reported to my boss's boss, my boss's boss's boss, and I come right up the channel until it got to the U.S. Senate. And, oh darn, you know, if you tell your boss and give him 6 months to fix it and he doesn't fix it and you tell his boss, you incur the wrath of your immediate boss. So you get this whole chain of management that hates your guts. And, okay, so what do they do about it? Well, what they do about it is put you in a corner, send you for what they call a fitness for duty evaluation so they can take your gun away from you so you can't be